In this story, after being reincarnated, the MC obtains a rare skill. Everything he imagines becomes reality. For example, to heal a wound, he merely needs to visualize it repaired. To acquire the perfect figure, no training is required, just imagination. To employ any form of elemental magic, he just imagines himself casting it. He can conjure any weapon or relic only by envisioning it. However, the results aren't flawless at first. Even such a broken skill needs to be leveled up. Fortunately, he ends up in the body of a student at a magic academy, allowing him plenty of time to develop his power. That way, he can properly prepare to seek revenge on those who caused his death in the past. Here's what occurred then. On that day, gates leading to mysterious dungeons suddenly emerged around the planet, and monsters in those dungeons came flooding out. Humanity was powerless against these creatures, and the only ones able to stop them were individuals who had awakened magical skills. Among these people are the Golden Seekers, a group of extremely powerful people who strove to defend the world from the strongest monsters. They are Ingolf von Dietz, Claudia Bourgeot, Nathaniel Cavell, Iwako Hideki, and Lei Ruoxi. These 5 heroes use their powers to battle any monster that steps foot into the human realm, but they don't always have the best interest of the rest of the human population at heart. As a civilian becomes surrounded by one of the monsters, Ingolf urges Claudia to go and help the victims, but she doesn't care enough about them to go. It looks like the man is about to be abducted by an ogre, but the monster's face is kicked in by the final member and the leader of the Golden Seekers. Masato Kyoichiro smiles as he informs everyone that he would take care of the rest of the monsters by himself. He hops off after making sure that everyone is alright, and charges a gigantic energy blast in his hand, utilizing it to crash through the creatures like a human wrecking ball and take them all out immediately. The rest can only stare in astonishment as he takes down the vast horde of monsters by himself, although it's expected that he would be this strong. After all, with his time magic, he can see the future, and he always knows what the monster will do next. At this level of strength, Misato isn't human anymore. In a matter of minutes, the army of monsters lay dead around the streets, and Misato confronts the remaining monster. It falls just as easy as the others, and Misato finally relaxes now that he has been able to defend the people's peace. All that's left for him to do is lock the entrance so that no more monsters may enter in. Right as he locks the entrance, a blast sends him hurtling into the dungeon, locking him behind his own seal. His 5 teammates watch him from outside the dungeon, without a concern in the world. Even with his temporal talents, he has never glimpsed a future like this before. He walks up to the seal and asks them if they were all in on this horrific scheme, and why they would do anything like this to him. The answer is obvious for them. It's because his urge to make sure that everyone is secure has continued to put his team in danger. He developed to become a level 100 monster who can use time attribute magic, but the rest of his squad only wanted to earn money. Now they have gotten fed up with him, and it's time for them to shut him away, so they can focus more on taking over the planet than the well-being of the people. With that, the crew walks off, laughing at the man who is about to die. Misato pounds on the seal, demanding to be rescued, but they don't even spare him another glance as they walk away. He can't believe that they would betray him for such selfish reasons, especially since all his efforts were merely to safeguard the planet from monsters. He can't understand why they would do this to him after everything that they've been through. And he doesn't have time to figure it out either, as monsters from the dungeon start to discover that he is stuck in the dungeon and start coming for him. Misato instinctively turns to fight them back, but he's faced by a gigantic wall of ravenous, powerful creatures. He utilizes his future vision to try and locate the future where he can survive this, but every single future ends in his unavoidable death. It looks like his future already no longer exists, and this is actually the end for him. Misato doesn't want to go down like a coward. He goes at the monsters with a golden fist, determined to take down as many of them as he possibly can and change the future. In the end, though, even though hundreds of them had been defeated, thousands of them still march towards him. As he kneels on the ground, with his own blood pooling around him, he understands that there is no choice for him than to embrace death. But even if he's going to die, he'll make sure that things won't finish here. As the creatures gather on top of him, he desperately attempts to make sure that his death won't be in vain. He charges up his time attribute magic in his body, with the purpose of reincarnating and becoming stronger so that he can reach the height of his strength. Once he reincarnates, he will undoubtedly want to get revenge on them for everything they've done to him. All the fury and anguish in his body will continue to develop until the day that he can finally take revenge on them comes. With one more push, he ignites the time magic, illuminating the entire space in a blinding golden glow. When Misato opens his eyes again, he's in a much younger body in a different environment. He stands up from the hospital bed and takes a peek in the mirror. This new body has a younger face and short hair, and when he rests his hand on the mirror, he understands that the rebirth worked just as he expected. Right now, he looks to be at a hospital, but the place has drugs that he isn't familiar with. It must have been several years since the incident, and he just hopes that it hasn't been too long, so he can still take revenge on the people that deceived him. On a table beside the bed, he finds a student ID that must have belonged to the former owner of the body he's using today. From the date on the card, he can tell that it has been at least 20 years after the tragedy, suggesting that he should still have time to find them. The name of the student is Asai Kiyosuke, and they have the Void attribute at level 1. Seeing that quality causes Misato to giggle maniacally as his luck. In his past existence, he was dreaded by his teammates for being the strongest due of his time attribute, but as he improved, he learned that he couldn't get any stronger. That's because even though his clairvoyance was able to observe everything about the world, even he couldn't see the actual extent of the Void attribute's power. But now this body that he possesses has the mysterious power, and Misato feels sad for him. That's because the Void characteristic is so rare and undiscovered that it's also something that no one knows how to train. That's also possibly why the boy is still at level 1. He was also presumably criticized for having no attributes several times, although unintentionally having the strongest. Now that he knows the circumstance that he is in, Misato makes a pledge to the youngster that's long gone, that he will make his name known throughout the world as the strongest adventurer that has ever lived. Thanks to his clairvoyance talent, Misato knows how to train the Void attribute, and with the power, he will become the absolute strongest in the world. Once he develops this feeble level 1 body to something genuinely powerful, then he will make sure that the traitors from his prior life would regret betraying him and causing his death. In order to have his revenge on them, Misato will have to get this kid past level 1. He was clearly more powerful than them in his prior existence, but today he's simply a teenager. The Void attribute, as the name suggests, is a form of magic relating to the management of nihility. The skill allows the user to freely project one's imagination into reality. Everyone is capable of imagining things, but converting that imagination into reality is where the struggle resides. Luckily for Misato, this body that he has taken over is gravely injured. That means that he can try his new powers on healing himself. All he has to do is adapt the image that he has in his head to his body, and visualize himself steadily mending his injuries. If he focuses, he can imagine every single cell in his body being restored by magic, slowly, as he applies the magic to his arm first, and the big bruise slowly starts to repair itself. It's only rudimentary casting for now, so the recovery pace isn't fantastic, and he can tell that the interior of the arm isn't totally healed, but it's still very encouraging progress. If he continues using the ability to heal all his wounds, his level will slowly increase over time. The power to translate imagination into reality will likewise increase over time as he continues to apply it. As he levels up, it will also extend the scope of what kind of pictures he can translate into reality. Through that constant progress, he can make many different sorts of things. And then, he will eventually be able to use many different kinds of magic. It will even get to the point where the picture that the user produces in their head can be created flawlessly in reality. As he thinks about the potential applications of his new powers, a doctor rushes through the door and is startled that he's finally awake. Misato wants to get up, but the doctor orders him to sit down since he was gravely injured after getting attacked by a monster. This is the first time Misato has heard what happened to the past owner of his body. It must have been pretty severe, because the doctor is amazed that he woke up at all. He thinks that the miracle must be attributable to the benediction of the saintess. That's the first time Misato has heard the word of a saintess, but to the doctor, it's common information, and he's startled that Misato doesn't know about her. She is known as the saintess of the pentagram saints, but Misato doesn't know what it is either. The doctor basically explains his lack of basic information to the fact that he just regained consciousness after receiving terrible injuries. For now, he turns the focus to giving Misato a full inspection. As he goes, Misato can't shake the thought of these pentagram saints out of his mind. Maybe they are one of the clans or adventurers that came to be in the past 20 years. While he's focused on leveling up, he also has to have a grip of what has changed over the past 2 decades. He grabs a remote from the bedside table and tunes to a news station. It's coincidentally playing a special show about the SSS-class dungeon disaster that happened 20 years ago. That's exactly what he needs information on, and he needs to know what happened after he was misled. The broadcast indicates that the culprit of the disaster was the commander of the Golden Seekers, Misato Kyoichiro himself. Misato leaps out of bed in horror as he sees his own face plastered on the TV screen. He has no idea what they are talking about, and keeps listening. Apparently, the news that went about was that he predicted the approaching calamity, but refused to inform anyone about it. Instead, he was intending to take advantage of the impending turmoil that would sweep the planet in order to take charge and rule it. To halt this, the other members of the Golden Seekers banded together and fought him to prevent this from happening. After beating Misato, the remaining members of the Golden Seekers rebranded themselves as the Pentagram Saints, and after a fierce battle, they shut the dungeon and saved the world. This fake reality is a widespread knowledge now that the whole world knows about, and the Pentagram Saints have gone on to lead the globe in many different sectors. Misato shuts off the news show and stares out the window in disbelief. The shock leads to hysterical hilarity as he figures out just what happened while he was gone. Not only did they betray him, they also dragged his reputation and dignity through the mud. They sacrificed him and brazenly enjoyed the spoils. In the end, today they are being praised by the world as heroes while he's decaying. With this latest knowledge, he is absolutely not going to forgive them. Now he needs to make sure that all of them go to hell one by one, but he had to calm himself down before he goes overboard. After all, he can't get spotted by them since he is way too weak to take them on as he is right now. The first thing he has to figure out is where they are and how he can get to them. He takes the boy's phone and looks through it to figure out what academy he attends. Just as he thought, he attends Tokigo Adventurer Training Academy, which is overseen by one of the Pentagram Saints, Iwako Hideki. He just woke up, and now he has already located one of the saints so simply. Iwako is a careful man nevertheless, and he's not the type of person that would just disclose his faults so lightly. On top of that, the contrast between their levels is just too huge. Beating him as he is right now is pretty much impossible. For now, he has to focus on expanding his levels and becoming stronger. He can't accomplish anything at level 1, but once he develops to an acceptable range, then he will make sure that Iwako is the first target. A few weeks pass and ultimately Masato is fully recovered and prepares to be discharged. The doctor can't believe that he made such a quick recovery despite how badly damaged he was. He starts to think that Masato was once again blessed by the Saintess, but our MC cuts him off before he can continue that sentence. He wants the doctor to know for sure that everything that he has achieved so far was entirely to his own power. With that, he exits the hospital, bidding farewell to the doctor for the last time as he walks out. Now that he's done with the bare-bones preparation for his plan, he's ready to take things to the next level. He has also managed to improve his level up to 27. It's time for him to get a warm-up and test his new powers by venturing to a dungeon. Before he left the hospital, he heard from the doctor that all of Kiyosuke's family had died in an accident. It's awful for Kiyosuke, but for Masato it makes things so much easier, as that means that he can do whatever he wants, and he doesn't have to worry about anyone questioning his actions. As soon as he makes his way out of the hospital, he heads over to the nearest dungeon gate to start his first adventure. He has to make sure that he levels up and develops stronger as fast as feasible. Now that he has gained his level by mending himself, it's time for him to test out his new skills in genuine combat. He heads over to the stall at the gate, where the security guard provides permission to enter, and he presents his student ID card. The guard grabs his hand to stop him before he can go into the gate. He's anxious about Masato entering the dungeon, since he's only level 27. And this dungeon is normally a place where adventurers have to be at least level 30 to join up parties and enter the dungeon. Despite the severe prohibitions, Masato plans to enter the dungeon alone, which to the guard is practically the same as suicide. That would be true for anyone with a standard class, but Masato is a student from the Tokigo Adventurer Training Academy, and that should give him special permits to enter this place, matter how dangerous it is. As long as he signs a consent form, it should be fine for him to access without any limits. He knew something like this would happen when he neared the dungeon gate, so he checked up the special rights he gets as a student of the institution, and this is one of several. The guard has no choice but to allow him past. But that doesn't change the fact that he's frightened. Some voices shout out to him from the other side of the compound. A bunch of thuggish-looking kids tells Masato that the guard is only worried about him, so he shouldn't take it to heart. After all, he's just a weak student that hasn't even graduated from the academy yet. Masato only spares them one glance before he turns around and asks the guard where he's supposed to sign. He puts his signature and leaves to enter the dungeon after checking that there shouldn't be any more complications. The guard watches our MC leaves and then calls out to the youngsters from earlier and orders them to head inside the dungeon and follow Masato. He can't get over the thought that just allowing a youngster to walk in there unprotected is virtually suicide. At first, they try to dispute with the guard, since they are not prepared to risk their necks for someone they hardly know, but the leader among them prevents his comrades from making a big fuss. This might end up being good for them at the end of the day. If nobody is observing them inside the dungeon, then they can head in there and do anything they want. Even if something bad were to happen in there wouldn't be difficulties or consequences. His companions immediately comprehend what he's talking about, and they gladly rush into the dungeon to follow Masato. Now they can pay him back for being such a brat to them and trying to attempt a dungeon that should be well above his level. The guard gladly sends them, utterly unaware of their true intentions. This isn't the first time that they have done this. They kill the individuals that find their way into the dungeon and then blame it on the monsters. Thanks to that, they can pad their pockets handsomely, and no one is any wiser about it. With that in mind, they continue following after Masato, but 10 minutes of running later, they still haven't gotten up to him. The dungeon is a straight path, so it's impossible for them to have lost him, and at this point, they have no idea how he has gone so far away. Eventually, they catch up to him, and they see him encircled by a wall of creatures. At first, they think that they won't have to murder him after all, and the monsters would take care of him for them, but Masato shows them wrong by utilizing fire magic paired with wind magic to kill all the creatures in a matter of seconds. They are startled by the fact that he managed to kill so many D-ranked creatures at once, but they are also more interested in the large loot drops that came from the monsters. If they sell that loot drop, then they can live comfortably for at least 6 months. Masato's back is still turned to them, so they think that he hasn't noticed them yet. This is the perfect opportunity for them to spring an attack and kill him so they may obtain the rare loot drop. The three rush into action and encircle him, then all at once, they unleash their magic at him. Masato finally turns around and gives them his attention, effortlessly deflecting all their assaults without wasting a second. He's used to these types of things already from his prior existence. No matter what age it is, there's always scum that tries to grab what belongs to someone else. Since he escaped all their long-ranged attacks, one of them fires up a fireball and goes in close to take down Masato with a magically strengthened punch. Masato is quicker, however, and charges his fist with ice, which he uses to smack the attacker straight in the stomach and send him flying back to his teammates. The goon is taken down in a second and left to fester at the back, as Masato turns and approaches the rest who are now cowering in fright. In this new existence, he won't be as merciful as he used to be. He plans to crush anyone who gets in his way and then use them as a stepping stone to reach to his next goal without hesitation. Everything that he will do from now on is all for the sake of his retribution. With the goons taken care of, Masato leaves the dungeon entirely uninjured. But the disappearance of the boys triggers an instructor from the academy to arrive and check on what transpired. The man is a subordinate of Iwako, Yoichi Tsudai, and he got the news that one of his students entered the dungeon alone. Instead of finding his student struggling though, he instead finds 3 beginner hunter adventurers lying dead on the ground. But there's no indications to explain what in the world transpired in the dungeon. Back with Masato, he goes through his new stats now that he managed to finish the dungeon. Thanks to clearing the D-rank dungeon, he was able to level up and test out his void magic at the same time. Now he has obtained a new spell called Info Obscurity, which allows him to not only take his level, but also delete his dungeon entrance records. Thanks to that, he can remove any indications from the D-rank dungeon that could lead back to him. Now that he has moved on from it, tomorrow is his first day at the academy, and he needs to prepare for it. He takes a look through Kyosuke's phone and sees some unread texts from people that are plainly tormenting him and extorting money from him through violence. That completely describes what Kyosuke has been through and how he got in that awful state. The next day, he heads to school, and as he walks through the front gate, he's met by a cute girl that seems to know him. This is his classmate Asahi Karen, and she runs over to ask him how he's doing after being hospitalized. It looks like despite his problems, Kyosuke had individuals that were worried about him. As the two of them chat, a group of bullies arrive to confront Kyosuke. They taunt him for being someone with no attribute, and they are well aware of the fact that he nearly missed death. These are most likely the people that were sending him frightening messages the night before. The lead bully goes up to them and demands for Kyosuke to make up for them always having to protect him, and it's evident that this is going to escalate to a fight. Karen gets in front of him and attempts to stop the bullies, reminding them that Kyosuke just got out from the hospital. Although she's attempting to be brave for him, her shaking hands are an obvious clue that she's afraid. Our MC realizes this and gets in front of her, telling her that he will be alright. The bullies laugh at him, assuming that he's just trying to look cool in front of a female. Since he's so eager to show off, the bullies are more than delighted to remind him of his standing in the school. Unfortunately for them, they haven't yet recognized that the hierarchy has shifted since Masato took over. He made a promise to the youngster whose body he took over that he will make his name known around the world as the strongest adventurer, and Masato views himself to be a person that keeps to his word. He taunts the first bully, and it works exceptionally effectively, forcing him to cast a spell towards Masato's direction. Using magic outside of dungeons is against school rules, but it appears like the bullies don't care anymore. They need to show Masato that it's improper to go out of line when they don't have qualities. He tosses a fireball at our MC, and Masato returns it in kind, countering his attack with an even greater fireball. The two strikes clash, resulting in a big explosion, while the bullies wonder when Kyosuke obtained the skill to unleash a fireball. Masato is barely fazed by the weaker attacks, and the bully orders his companions to quit standing around like NPCs and do something. The two of them released wind and water assaults on Masato, But just like with their boss, Misato countered the two attacks with comparable attacks on a grander scale. They can barely comprehend that someone who had no attribute not so long ago is now using many magic attributes at once. This is a power that they have never heard about before, but it's just the beginning. Misato has only been using their own powers to negate their strikes, but now it's his chance to go on the offensive. He fires up a big fireball behind him to scare them, and the enormity of it forces them to flee away in panic as he moves towards them. Misato grabs the closest one, who's begging for aid as he tries to flee away. Then he asks the child if he gave Kyosuke any help back when he needed it. Without waiting to hear the boy's answer, he grabs him by the face and holds him up while charging a big fireball in his fist. He realizes that there is no need to hear what the person has to say, as guys like him always end up saying the same things regardless. That's why, no matter what he ends up spouting out, it won't stop Misato's fist from crashing into his face. With that, he throws a huge strike on the child, sending him flying backwards and leaving him unconscious in the academy courtyard. Karen can barely believe that this is the same Kyosuke from before, yet it's evident that something in him has changed. Now Kyosuke isn't going to be someone that will get picked on by nobodies longer. He will start traveling the route to becoming the strongest adventurer. Now that they've realized exactly how powerful Misato truly is, the bullies start pathetically begging for their lives. They take their fallen comrade and hobble their way out of the courtyard, still stunned by the fact that Kyosuke seems to have become a completely different person after being freed from the hospital. Misato sighs. After all of the talk, the bully turns out to not be all that he's cracked out to be. He comes with Karen into the school, and it's evident that all the pupils saw what he did in the courtyard. They all stare at him and whisper to themselves as he walks past. Misato notices the looks and thinks if he stood out too much by flaunting off like that. As he walks with Karen, someone tries to cut through the crowd to get to him before he can enter his class. It's Yoichi Tsudai, and he approaches Kyosuke to ask some inquiries before class. Kyosuke has no idea who this guy is, but he appears like an upperclassman. It'd undoubtedly be a pain to deal with him, and he decides to blow off the request to chat. He turns around and says that they can't talk now as class is about to start. But Yoichi isn't willing to accept no for an answer. He announces himself as the chief of Biting the Cat, which is a plan that Principal Iwako developed for the school. That draws Kyosuke's attention immediately, and his hand pauses as he's ready to open the door. Seeing that he has grabbed our MC's attention, he asks again whether Kyosuke would be ready to have a little discussion and give some of his time. Since the context has altered, Kyosuke eagerly agrees to have the talk with his upperclassmen. They find a discreet area to chat, and Yoichi goes straight to the point. He asks Kyosuke if he is the one that defeated the adventurers that were found dead in the D-rank dungeon. Our MC appears dumb, but on the inside, he's wondering how the information that he particularly concealed got out. Yoichi states that he learned from the staff that a student of his academy had entered the dungeon, and he went in to investigate. And within the dungeon, he found the bodies of the infamous criminals known for hunting novices. On top of that, not even up to 10 minutes ago, Kyosuke used various qualities to battle his fellow students. While all of things are accurate, the way Yoichi delivers his evidence suggests that he doesn't truly know the nuances of our MC's magic, and he also has no proof that he actually was the one who took down those rookie adventurers. Yoichi gets more forceful and tells Kyosuke to spit it out and acknowledge to what he did. But our MC keeps calm and informs him that this morning he just acted in self-defense, therefore he doesn't completely know what happened. Then he digs into his jacket and pulls out the student ID card that he altered to display a phony level. The ID card shows that he's simply level 1, which implies he can't possibly be powerful enough to perform all the atrocities that he's being accused of. On top of that, he also possesses the Void attribute, which is commonly recognized to be a worthless attribute that might as well indicate you have no magic. The idea that Kyosuke is just a nobody and is wasting Yoichi's time gets him angry, and he turns to go, apologizing for calling him over for no reason. Before he goes, he tells Kyosuke to avoid acting suspiciously so that he doesn't generate trouble for his seniors. Kyosuke watches the upperclassman go with a smile. It looks like he has found someone that would be advantageous to his future ambitions. If he gets Yoichi under his thumb, then the senior can approach Iwako without the principal growing apprehensive. The next thing he has to do is figure out a method to make Yoichi his pawn. This is the perfect opportunity for him to test out an experimental spell that he has been cooking up for a while. Meanwhile, Yoichi Hai travels to meet Principal Iwako to deliver an incident report on what transpired in the D-rank dungeon. Iwako listens calmly before reminding Yoichi that it's unusual for him to make mistakes. He has advised his staff multiple times that he should be careful choosing who to use. Yoichi apologizes for his sins and bows down to the principal, pledging to try and calm the situation as soon as possible. Iwako walks up to his subordinate as he continues to bow, and warns him that if it gets known that he works with adventurers who seek novices, then the backlash will also reach the principal, who is a pentagram saint. Then he grabs the pupil by the face and informs him that if he continues to make mistakes like these, then he will be dumped in a hurry. Yoichi drops his head lower and assures the elder guy that he understands. On the outside, he seems courteous and subservient, but inside, Yoichi is boiling at the fact that he has to deal with this elderly man. If he had anticipated that things would end up like this, then he would have tried to squeeze out more hush money from the amateur hunters. Now that the key items have been covered, Iwako still doesn't totally accept Yoichi's story. According to the report that he gave, the kid that started this whole issue should at least be a third-year student, but there's no third-year student who entered the dungeon recently, according to the records. What Iwako suspects is that a monster defeated the gang while they were off hunting novices, and now Yoichi is desperately trying to cover it up. Rather than thinking that one of the academy's students is capable of beating rookie hunters on their own, it's more realistic to suppose that Yoichi is just lying to save face. The only way that Iwako could be wrong is if something exceptional happened. Yoichi quickly remembers the void attribute student from earlier. He asks Iwako if it's conceivable for a unique attribute to be involved in this mess. While it's feasible, it's also exceedingly unlikely, and Iwako doesn't buy it. Yoichi has heard what he needs to know, and he tells the principal to leave it to him. He will figure out the main source of the matter and deal with it fast, and he understands that Kyosuke is where he needs to start. The next day, a group of students are taking a training session in a dungeon. They all release their magic on the creatures in the dungeon, but some of them are simply too strong and jump over the students to attack them. The kids desperately rush away as Yoichi dashes past them and hits the monster in the back with great magic, causing it to tumble to the ground. He calmly encourages the students not to break formation and to remain calm and orderly. The pupils marvel at how amazing Yoichi is, and they aren't startled by the fact that he was chosen by Principal Iwako to lead Biting the Cat. Now that all the monsters in the area have been taken care of, he leaves the rest of the dungeon clearance to the pupil and walks out to deal with a personal business. Now that important concerns have been taken care of, it's time for him to do what he truly came here for. He pulls a piece of jewelry out of his pocket and activates it to show Kyosuke's present position. The chains glow for a moment, then point at a direction considerably deeper into the dungeon, far away from the other students. It's just as Yoichi predicted. There's clearly something unusual going on with Kyosuke, and he's desperate to know what's going on. This is much better for him anyway, since no one would think twice about the death of a student who walked away from the group. He'll just tell everyone that he happened to find Kyosuke already dead, further within the dungeon. Tragedies like these are a typical occurrence in dungeons anyway, and he won't lose any sleep at night for it. The more Yoichi thinks about the peculiar student, the more he's sure that there is something that he needs to figure out. First, it was the event with the novice hunters, and after that, it was nothing but difficulties after he got removed from the hospital. The boys that Kyosuke beat up also presented a fairly interesting story that he wants to know more about. They pleaded for mercy and said that the child with no qualities took them all on at once, and even utilized numerous sorts of magic to harm them. Not only that, even after employing the same type of magic they employed, he also created a massive flame like nothing they have ever seen before. The whole scenario is simply too absurd for Yoichi to believe, and he's almost completely confident that they are lying. Once he finished asking the boys what he needed to know, he left them alone, but not before urging his minions to re-educate them and make sure that they understood that the academy has no use for weaklings who lose to people that are incompetent. He walks away, while the boys plead for compassion, but the matter has been decided, and he doesn't plan on changing his mind. One of the bullies speaks out before he can leave the room. This one is the most seriously beaten among them, and he's the same one who Kyosuke dealt a devastating fire-charged punch to. He cautions Yoichi that Kyosuke has long since stopped being human, and he has a whole different level of power. The dread in his eyes is certainly not something that can be manufactured. And just to be sure, Yoichi had Kyosuke placed in a special class hosted by Biting the Cat. Instead of showing off all the things that the boys claimed though, just made some powerful illusions, which isn't half as spectacular as what they claimed he could do. It's more likely that Kyosuke employed some kind of magic item during their fight, and he's just a weak non-attribute that doesn't need any attention. He's also sure that our MC must have utilized some kind of underhanded approach to take care of the inexperienced hunters too. As he ventures farther into the dungeon, he starts to discover some monster corpses littered throughout the area. These creatures were most likely defeated by Kyosuke, and it looks like they were defeated with a single hit of fire. Seeing the proof there in front of him makes Yoichi realize that maybe those youngsters weren't just exaggerating after all. But the level of strength he's seeing still isn't a significant concern for him, and he continues traveling deeper into the dungeon to find his target. Even Iwako, the pentagram dropout, could probably do something at this amount of power. Speaking of Iwako, Yoichi is obligated to do what he says for now. But one day the leader of Biting the Cat aims to surpass the old man and take his place as one of the pentagram saints himself. From there he can go on to dominate the globe. Just thinking about that makes him giggle maniacally. That apart, he mustn't let anyone find out about his relationship to the inexperienced hunters. Kyosuke is also another thorn in his side that is expected to create more issues in the future. To ensure that tiny accidents don't happen to undermine his major plan, he has to make sure that Kyosuke is taken care of as quickly as possible. The chains take him to a dead-end portion of the dungeon, and he's convinced that his target should be right around the corner. He approaches the room and rounds the corner, wondering exactly what in the world Kyosuke could be doing in a place like this. His answers are quickly answered when he observes the student quietly sitting atop a mound of monster corpses, as if he were waiting for Yoichi. The instant he turns the corner, Kyosuke scolds him for being late and keeping him waiting. Yoichi can barely believe what he's seeing. His presence should have been entirely camouflaged, yet it's evident that Kyosuke was eagerly waiting for him this entire time. His mind starts to rush as he wonders how Kyosuke managed to notice his presence. But our MC parrots his thoughts precisely before he can even complete thinking them. On top of being powerful to unknown degrees, it looks that our MC can even read thoughts now. That's another dilemma for Yoichi to think about as he tries to figure out who he's facing off against. With no reason to hide in the corner anymore, Yoichi steps out and bluntly asks Kyosuke what exactly he is. Kyosuke doesn't answer the question, and instead congratulates Yoichi on being someone specifically picked by Iwako. But then he also says that the feat isn't something that he should think of as a huge issue. The way he chased down the novices and extorted money from them is a cowardly conduct, exactly like his guru, Iwako. That's something that no one should know, yet it's evident that Kyosuke has his upperclassmen all figured out. Then our MC jumps down from the dead pile to confront his senior directly. He knows that Yoichi seems to enjoy tormenting others, but that is only because he has never felt how it feels to be persecuted. Now that he has decided to cross Kyosuke, our MC will be more than pleased to teach him what it feels like to be chased, and by the end of it, he will use his power to make Yoichi dance. After what he has witnessed today, Yoichi can confirm it for himself. Kyosuke has become someone so scary that he can't ignore. He activates a sword with fire magic and prepares to go to battle with the powerful student. For the sake of his ambition, he will do his utmost to defeat Kyosuke at all costs. Without wasting a second, Yoichi leaps from the ground towards our MC, dashing at him and unleashing a powerful strike. Kyosuke dodges it smoothly, and he's not a bit impressed by Yoichi's inferior level of talent. Then he returns the attack in like by charging up a fireball in his hand and throwing it right back at Yoichi. The senior student cuts through the flame with his sword, and he also isn't impressed with Kyosuke's level of competence. It's evident that the two of them are holding back against each other, and the war has just begun. As soon as the flame clears, a bolt of lightning cuts right towards him, and he is only barely able to parry it with his sword. Then several jagged spikes shoot out from the dirt below him, but he's able to hack them all up in a moment with a few swift sword strikes. That confirms that Kyosuke actually is able to use many magic properties at once. It appears like there is something insane going on with his void magic that he has never heard of before. As he's talking, Kyosuke jumps behind him with an ice sword and aims for a backstab, but Yoichi is just barely quick enough to react in time and prevent it. Now suddenly, the upperclassman is on the back foot, and he's being driven back by a much stronger and faster Kyosuke. Now, the leader of Biting the Cat is starting to get agitated. Ever since Kyosuke emerged out of nowhere, he has done nothing except get in the way of Yoichi's goals. Kyosuke has no idea what he's talking about, as he doesn't even know what the upperclassman's plans are. His plan is quite straightforward. He one day hopes to become the individual that surpasses Iwako. After completing that, he will take Iwako's place as one of the pentagram saints. Kyosuke has no idea why he would choose Iwako, as there are other pentagram saints, but the answer is simple as well. It's because Iwako is a pentagram saint dropout. If Yoichi aims to become a pentagram saint, then it makes sense for him to target the weakest one, and once he gets to become one of them, then he will gain the right to govern the world. He believed Yoichi might have gotten to Iwako first, but it looks like the upperclassman merely has a weak goal. There's no need for him to be frightened about someone so worthless taking his role as the guy who will kill Iwako. The unwanted criticism angers Yoichi, and he charges at RMC with new zeal, and the two clash with their respective swords. Yoichi merely wants power and money and women to be an easy access in his life. He wants the kind of power where no matter how badly he tramples on others, no one can say anything. If he becomes a pentagram saint, then he can do whatever he wants, and he can even get a hold of the saintess's vulnerability, and maybe he might go on to claim her as well. Kyosuke is tired of hearing the fantasies of his power-hungry opponent, and he prepares to end this conflict once and for all. With a rapid flick of his blade, he sends Yoichi flying backwards, and the power is great enough to destroy the upperclassman's weapon. On top of that, Thanks to Yoichi's pointless talking, it provided Kyosuke ample time to construct a specific magic spell. Yoichi cowers in dread as Kyosuke draws Clace and tells him to dance. Then he places a palm next to Yoichi's face, utilizing his void magic to cast absolute hypnosis. The spell demands some effort to break the target's spirit first, but once it's activated, it will allow Yoichi to have complete power over the will of his opponent. He commands Yoichi to get up, and in an instant he gets to his feet like a zombie. It looks like the spell was a success, as he managed to get Yoichi under his entire control. Then he gives his new puppet directions to focus on finishing the dungeon objective, for the sake of the class. Then later on, he will get further instructions on what to do next. Finally, Kyosuke instructs him to go back to utilizing his normal tone, since his present tone is too robotic. With that, Yoichi returns, but he is now entirely under Kyosuke's control. As the man walks away, Kyosuke lets out a sly smile before strolling off to return to his group. As he makes his way through the dungeon, he's found by Karen, who has been hunting for him for a time. She was anxious about him since he suddenly disappeared from the group without a trace. Kyosuke puts on his finest smile and apologizes for disappearing all of a sudden. He tells her that he just went to chat to Yoichi about something. That shocks her, as she didn't know that he and Yoichi were that close, and she asks him what they were talking about. He tells her that they were just chatting about how to make their dreams come true, and he got some wonderful advice. The council was so fantastic, in fact, that one of his fantasies has actually come true. Their chat is interrupted by the group of kids leaving the dungeon. The special class is about to end, and all pupils need to report back to the group before they leave. Karen turns around to head back to the group and tells Kyosuke to follow her. Everything is going right according to his plan, and now he has managed to get a pawn that Iwako would never guess. Yoichi returns to give a progress report on how his investigation into the individual that attacked the novice hunters is proceeding. He tells Iwako that the student who assaulted the novice hunters is truly a pupil with a special attribute just like he suspected. The student is Asai Kyosuke, and he's a first-year student with the void characteristic. Yoichi claims that he is holding Kyosuke imprisoned at the regular torture area. And he is also questioning the first year to dig out information. That is how the student acknowledged to utilizing multi-attribute magic. That draws Iwako's interest, and he wonders what Yoichi means by multi-attribute magic. The specifics are yet unknown, but Yoichi requests for some more time to seek out what buried secrets Kyosuke has. On top of that, it's been a while since the principal has spent any hands-on time with their victims. Yoichi asks Iwako if he would want to be in charge of the students' torture and interrogation. This sort of thing isn't generally something that Iwako would bother himself with, but just once wouldn't be bad for him. It's been a long since he tortured someone, and it'd be an excellent time to repay the youngster generously for all the problems that he has caused to both the principal and Yoichi. As the two argue, Iwako's phone rings, and he instructs Yoichi to leave, telling him that he would go to the warehouse later to take care of it himself. Then the man answers the phone, to be met by a mocking female voice on the other side. She welcomes him and praises him for choosing her company during the previous day's bid on materials. Iwako isn't ready to hear her arrogant tone and tells her to drop the act. The guy on the other side of the line is one of the Pentagram Saints and the current CEO of Lei Company, Lei Ruexi. She drops the pretense precisely as he asked, and reminds him that they are both partners as they are enjoying the government's nice subsidies. Iwako still isn't in the mood for her obnoxious ridicule, and he tries to end the conversation by telling her that he's busy right now and they can talk on another day. She asks him what business that he might possibly have, since he has an easy position as a governor of an academy that regularly fills his pockets. He tells about Kyosuke and his void attribute, and that attracts her curiosity. She knows the void attribute as a useless attribute and wonders what Iwako wants to accomplish with a failure like that. He agrees with her that the void attribute isn't worth much concern, but he also warns her that anything could happen as the void property is still a unique attribute. It's evident to her that Iwako is still pondering about Kyoichiro Masato's time attribute magic. The principal doesn't enjoy hearing that man's name, and screams at her so loud that she had to remove the phone away from her eyes, due of the volume. Iwako is still as short-tempered as ever whenever Masato is mentioned, but she can't blame him for that. After all, as soon as Masato awakened his time attribute power, the balance of power amongst adventurers flipped drastically. Since she has stated all she needs to, she decides to end the call and informs him that she will contact him later. Iwako slacks the phone receiver on the table as soon as the call disconnects. He doesn't like talking to her, and he certainly doesn't like hearing the name of their former leader. Just hearing it has gotten him worked up, and it seems this is the best opportunity for him to take out all his rage. Iwako walks to a lonely warehouse in the forest, where he and Yoichi normally carry out their torture tactics on their victims. As he moves towards the enormous doors, he wonders how he's going to torment the pupil, running through numerous alternative torture ways in his brain. He couldn't let out all his wrath on Masato, so he will take it out on Kyosuke instead. The door opens up to an empty warehouse, and neither Kyosuke or Yoichi are there. As Iwako is attempting to figure out what's going on, Yoichi approaches up from behind with his sword drawn and aims directly for Iwako's face. The principal doesn't even look behind him as he catches the blade between two of his fingers. For Yoichi to assume that an attack like that would land, he must have gravely underestimated his principal. Iwako builds up energy in his hand, ready to teach Yoichi a lesson. If he was outraged at the mention of Masato previously, then this petty insult has made him insane with wrath. He ties Yoichi with magical chains and holds him upside down. Then he kicks his subordinate away with ease, sending him down to the ground with a grunt of pain. Clearly, Yoichi made the incorrect choice here. By challenging Iwako without admitting their gap in strength, now it's time for Iwako to break him down and demolish all his foolish desires. Before he can start teaching Yoichi a lesson, a harsh voice speaks out behind him and laughs at the fact that Iwako still remains an idiot. The principal turns his head towards the voice and sees Kyosuke quietly strolling out of the warehouse. He continues to berate Iwako, pointing out his penchant of groveling before the strong and exploiting the weak. The elder man is still just as greedy and ignorant as he's always been. Iwako still doesn't comprehend just who he's talking to, and tries to remind the student that he's talking to the principal of the academy. But Kyosuke doesn't stop talking. He points out the fact that Iwako is a hypocrite, since if anyone has damaged themselves with their selfish desires, it's undoubtedly him. That's the final straw for Iwako, and he insists that Kyosuke give him his student number so he can be expelled. Kyosuke smiles at how Iwako still hasn't realized just who he is. He has worked so hard to get to this moment, and now it's finally time for he and Iwako to have a discussion between themselves. Iwako still has no idea just who he's talking to, but now he's confident that he's going to need to teach Kyosuke a huge lesson to prove just how great the difference in their strength is. He initiates the attack with sophisticated earth attribute magic, forming a massive fist out of rocks to destroy Kyosuke in one hit. Normally, there'd be no way a pupil would avoid an onslaught like that. He sends the fist flying towards Kyosuke, who doesn't react to it, and it appears like he's ready to absorb the full force of the strike. The attack lands, and Iwako starts to laugh madly, thinking that Kyosuke has been knocked out so easily. This is what happens when mere students dare to resist him. The smoke clears, and there's no sign of life left, and the warehouse is entirely demolished with nothing left. Iwako starts to believe that he went a bit too far, since he demolished the warehouse, as he'll now have to find a new spot to torture other people. He never even got to discover who Kyosuke was, but he can at least hang around to watch him die. Once he feels like his duty is done, he turns around to depart, but then discovers Kyosuke standing in front of him, absolutely undisturbed. Our MC calmly walks out of the debris and informs Iwako that he simply wanted a small discussion and not violence. The principal can barely believe that a regular student got hit by his powerful magic, yet still managed to come out of it entirely undamaged. There has never been a student as powerful as that before. Now Iwako isn't just inquisitive, he's outraged and he demands to know who Kyosuke is. Kyosuke smiles and asks Iwako if he still hasn't found out who he is after all this time. Iwako still doesn't know who Kyosuke is, and encourages the kid to stop playing around and simply give his name already. Kyosuke smiles and asks Iwako one more time whether he really forgot about him. That's when Iwako finally notices from the way he talks and the mannerisms that this student looks and sounds an awful lot like Misato. The elder man starts to back away in terror, not thinking that Misato might be back. After all, that guy is surely dead and made sure of it by sealing the portal. He starts to think that all of this must be some kind of twisted show put on by Kyosuke, and he tells the student to cease the performance. Kyosuke presumably just saw the new part about Misato recently, and is trying to play a character to look threatening. That's the only reason, because as far as he's concerned, Misato Kyoichiro is dead. With that, Iwako charges up wind magic in his hand and gathers earth magic about himself as he prepares to launch another powerful assault. Kyosuke sighs in dismay at exactly how little Iwako has changed. He has always been like this, and he lives his life simply believing what's convenient for him while dismissing what isn't. Iwako is tired of hearing Kyosuke's lectures and continues to power up his magic assault. He cautions the man that if he continues to get closer, then he will be hit with a full blast of his power. Kyosuke continues to walk forward, building a magic blast of his own. He had worked out the man's motive by now. He was influenced by the beautiful words of those around him, and that's why he ended up betraying Misato. Saying his name feels like the last straw for Iwako, as he tosses a fully charged magical assault at the student. Kyosuke answers in kind, with a blast of fire magic, utterly nullifying the strike with a single swipe of his hand. The air clears as both their charms evaporate, leaving Iwako absolutely stunned that a pupil could resist his power. On top of that, he countered the spell using the exact same technique that Misato used to slay the final monster during the gate incident from 20 years ago. There's no way for him to deny it anymore. It's evident that this really is Misato, who has somehow come back for retribution. Iwako collapses to his knees as he starts to recollect everything. He's confident that they trapped him in the dungeon, and Misato should undoubtedly be dead, yet it appears like he miraculously survived. Kyosuke informs him that he was actually sealed and locked, and he was pushed into the depths of misery. Iwado finally accepts that this truly is Misato standing in front of him, and the pupil steps up to his principal with a smile, appearing glad that Iwako finally remembers him. Iwako is so astonished that he had to inquire again if Kyosuke really is the dead Misato Kyoichiro. The principal doesn't wait for an answer and gets up to question him again. He just can't believe that this actually is Misato. That man died nearly 2 decades ago, and for him to be here, that indicates he somehow returned to our planet. Then he starts preparing up another spell, this time to send Kyosuke down for good. He shoots more wind-based magic assaults at the student, and Kyosuke simply moves back, avoiding the attack totally. But Iwako doesn't allow him time to relax, and sends another enormous rock fist smashing down on him. Kyosuke still manages to casually sidestep the strike with no serious haste. At this point, Iwako is getting even more enraged that a tiny brat is managing to precisely dodge and escape all his attacks, seemingly without breaking a sweat. He has to gain the upper hand as quickly as possible, because it isn't just the fight that is at stake in this battle, but his pride as well. He was non-combatant throughout his time as a Golden Seeker, and even up till now, the other Pentagram Saints make fun of him for how cowardly he used to be. But he didn't let their taunting keep him down. He has made sure to prove that he isn't weak countless times, and recently he has been constructing something that will undoubtedly show off his true strength. Iwako raises his hands and gathers wind and earth magic about him, causing the area around him to darken as power swirls around him. This spell he's preparing is a secret technique that took 20 years to create. More pebbles and wind gather about in the air and swirl around him, building up into a catastrophic strike. This is the product of him devotedly learning how to dual-utilize wind and earth magic at the same time. Once the spell is fully activated, he sends it flying at Kyosuke all at once. Multiple tremendous blasts of wind and earth come from his palm directly for our MC, and they cut through the air before reaching the ground and producing a huge explosion to fully envelop the student. The massive tornado of magic settles, and Iwako takes a moment to collect his breath. This is his strongest magic spell, and it definitely required a lot of energy from him to cast it. The dust starts to settle, and once again, there is no evidence of Kyosuke anywhere inside the rubble. It appears like Iwako has managed to come out on top this time. Kyosuke isn't countering, which suggests that he has most certainly been taken down by the devastating spell. Iwako bursts out in laughing, thrilled that he succeeded to take down the great Misato Kyoichiro on his own. He starts to insult the apparently deceased guy, asking whether he truly expected that after 20 years he would still be the same coward that he used to be back in the days of the Golden Seekers. No matter how strong Misato's time attribute is, that's all in the past, and now Iwako is the one who has come out on top. Back ago, when huge confrontations would place and the Golden Seekers would come out to save the planet, all Iwako could do was hide and collect loot drops for the squad. But that period was 2 decades ago, and Iwako isn't the same person he used to be. He mocks Kyosuke for underestimating his strength, and forgetting that after 20 years, one's strength will most surely increase with time. It's only natural that he got stronger after all. Now that he has the feat of finally knocking down Kyoichiro, he will make sure that the other Pentagram Saints don't act high and powerful longer. Now he will begin his reign as the true strongest among the Pentagram Saints. A voice interrupts into his crazy raving and asks him whether he's finally done. Kyosuke walks out from the dust, entirely undamaged, and brushes the extra dirt off of his body. After suffering so many attacks, somehow he is perfectly uninjured. Kyosuke for his side is at least partially impressed that Iwako has been able to employ such powerful magic. That's just to be expected from a hero of this era after all. But now that he has let Iwako have his pleasure, it's Kyosuke's turn to let his rage out without holding back. Iwako fully recognizes the disparity in strength between them and realizes that the guy he's facing off against right now is a monster. But he can't back out now, especially not after he fought so hard to get to where he is right now. He won't let Masato come in and wreck up everything that he has battled so hard to achieve. Iwako continues to press on the attack, unleashing another Earth Fist to attempt to grasp Kyosuke. But our MC doesn't react to another version of the same repetitious attack. The hand comes down on Kyosuke and slams shut, but he's simply able to dispel the earth magic with water. Once again, This entire fight is basically Iwako barking loudly as Kyosuke waits for him to finish and wear himself out. None of his attacks are going to be enough to defeat our MC, and at this point, he's just wasting his time. Despite that though, he still continues to squander his energy by firing limitless numbers of magic assaults at Kyosuke, even as the student continues to effortlessly dodge and counter everything. At this point, he's simply desperately attempting to keep our MC away out of fear, but Kyosuke has had enough of this struggle. He uses one clean attack to deflect all the magic away before it can get to him. Then he unleashes another wind strike to force Iwako back, causing him to slam into a tree. Before the elder guy can get up, Kyosuke advances with a fire-enhanced fist, ready to strike the man down once and for all. Iwako, understanding that there's nowhere else to go, cowers in front of Kyosuke, desperately begging for forgiveness. Kyosuke stops the fire fist for a time, as the man continues to grovel in front of him. He apologizes for what happened 20 years ago, and continues to beg for his life. Although he seems regretful on the outside, he's depending on Kyosuke's enormous empathy and niceness to allow him off the hook. If he simply begs hard enough, then surely Kyosuke will let him depart with his head still attached. But our MC just orders him to shut up. He can see through the elder man's manipulations, and realizes that this is the same way they used to capture him back then. There's no way he would ever let what occurred last time happen again. It looks like Kyosuke is beyond begging at this point, and he prepares to terminate the fight fast by reigniting his fiery fist. Iwako gets up and continues to beg, telling Kyosuke that they used to be friends, but it's already too late, and our MC informs the man that he no longer has the right to call him a friend. Now, he has simply become a demon of revenge. Then with no hesitation, he smacks his blazing fist into the victim's face and follows it up with additional high-intensity assaults, severely beating the man within an inch of his life. As Iwako starts to lose consciousness, he starts to realize that he never should have messed with Masato Kyoichiro to begin with. Kyosuke delivers one last tremendous punch, sending the man flying backwards and knocking him unconscious. Despite the savage thrashing, he made sure not to kill Iwako. After all, he still has some questions for the man. Those queries are going to have to wait though, because the man is fully knocked out and unable of communicating. After a while, Iwako wakes up and sees Kyosuke towering above him. The man immediately yells and jumps back in panic, before going back to pleading not to be killed. Kyosuke advises him to calm down, assuring him that he won't be dying yet. But in exchange, there are some questions he needs answers to. Kyosuke reaches inside the man's pocket and pulls out his phone. The first thing he wants is information about the pentagram saint, Lei Ruoxi. Iwako tries to reach for his phone, but Kyosuke holds it out of reach. He checks through the phone logs, and according to his history, he spoke to Lei as recently as today. Kyosuke demands to know what the two of them were talking about. Knowing fully well that he will most likely die if he doesn't cooperate, Iwako cracks and tells that Lei is scheduled to be traveling to Japan in 3 days, and she wanted to chat about her approaching visit. Kyosuke beams at the knowledge. In 3 days, one of his objectives will be coming right to him. That makes everything so much easier, and allows him to decide what he's going to do next. With that, he tosses the phone back to Iwako and orders him to treat Lei normally for now. However, he also warns the individual not to reveal anything about his identity. Kyosuke performed a specific spell on Iwako's heart while he was unconscious. The magic will allow Kyosuke to monitor him, and if he reveals her who he is, then in a moment, Iwako's heart will erupt in fire. That causes the elderly man to stop in panic as his brain struggles to digest the information. With nothing left to say, Kyosuke leaves, advising Iwako to make sure to honor his vow. The truth is that Kyosuke doesn't truly employ that kind of magic, but knowing how cowardly Iwako is, having a bluff like this will work as well as casting the spell on him. He doesn't want to employ absolute hypnosis on Iwako, because he wants the man to be in complete despair while yet preserving his sense of self. 3 days pass, and an inconspicuous airplane is on its way to Japan. Lei Ruoxi is on this trip, and she stares out the window in boredom as one of her bodyguards informs her that they are almost there. The flight attendant rushes to the back to announce to the passengers that the plane will be arriving shortly in Japan, but before she can finish her sentence, she screams into the mic as something happens to her. A bunch of armed men are hijacking the plane, and they hold the flight attendant at gunpoint. One of the men points his gun at the group of unarmed bystanders and demands all of them to get on the floor. Lei Ruoxi gets up without hesitation as the men continue to shout, and she heads towards the back of the plane. Then, in an instant, she dashes in front of one of the men and takes him by the collar, using magic to slam him into the ground before he can respond. With one down, she hurries to the other one holding the flight attendant hostage and knocks him out with a fast palm hit to the face. In a couple of seconds, both crooks are immobilized, and the passengers glance up to discover Lei Ruoxi standing over their comatose bodies. The plane lands without any further incidents, and the crooks are led away by law officials. The owner of the airport visits personally to congratulate Lei for her efforts in promptly and secretly dealing with the thieves. Lei is just thrilled that she coincidentally got on the same plane with the hijackers so that she would be there to stop them. Thanks to that, they avoided the plane's reputation getting ruined. More significant to her, though, it seems like the crooks were utilizing a particular type of gun that doesn't get picked up by detectors. Recently, there have been many groups armed with gear constructed from components they gained from dungeons. That's why Lei hopes to provide her crew some of the specific self-defense gear. She puts her hand on the owner's shoulder and directly informs him that she needs the gear that his airport utilizes. Immediately understanding what she wants from him, he bows his head and assures her that he would make sure it occurs. Once they are within the airport and away from the earshot of any eavesdroppers, Lei makes a phone call and tells the persons on the other line to release the hijackers. She was the one who placed the hijackers in order to take them out and salvage the day. By doing so, she helped to close the deal with the owner of the airport and even received some extra exposure as a result. As she exits the airport, an admiring gathering of fans are ready to give their love to her. They all perceive her as the hero, and she smiles and waves back at them. She makes it to Tokago Adventurer Training Academy and heads to Iwako's office to speak business with him. She's still curious about the void attribute pupil that Iwako mentioned earlier over the phone. She wants to know whether any progress has been while investigating the student. Iwako stutters for a bit, but acknowledges that the whole affair was just a false alarm. The bandages and wounds on his face are none of Lei Ruoxi's concern, and she doesn't question about them. Instead, she gets directly to the point of their talk, now that she has proven that the void attribute student is nothing but a waste of time. Iwako is still worried of the spell that Kyosuke claimed to have set on his heart, and he urgently tries to be normal, so he doesn't arouse any unwanted suspicion from her. Lei Ruoxi puts her cup down and proceeds to the main purpose of her speech, which is a new medication that her business is producing. They will need to determine who the next guinea pig for experimentation will be, and she intends to make use of the students and the academy for it. Kyosuke listens to the entire talk through an earphone connected to the room. He's appalled by the things he's hearing on the other side of the call, and it just helps to make his decision for him. The next person that would suffer the despair of his retribution will be Lei Ruoxi. Back at his place, Kyosuke watches the news for the day as he goes over his plan. The news talks about Lei Ruoxi and how she recently arrived in Japan. It also honors her for taking care of the hijackers that tried to take down her airliner. Kyosuke is too concentrated on his strategy to care about the news section. Lei Ruoxi is one of the people that betrayed him 20 years ago. From the research he managed to dig up, he found out that she makes unique weapons utilizing material from dungeons, and it also looks like she has managed to make a lot from selling them. But based from the talk that she had with Iwako earlier, it's likely that she's utilizing the school and its kids to do some horrible things. On the surface, she shows herself as a hero, but behind the scenes, she takes advantage of others. This isn't something that Kyosuke can just let to happen beneath his nose. He heads to school while trying to figure out what to do. Saying that he wants to seek revenge on Lei Ruoxi is one thing, but he doesn't have any clue on how to go about it. The school's security has been considerably stricter since Lei Ruoxi became involved with its activities, so for now all he can do is research the matter and try to locate an opening. As he's walking through the halls, Asahi comes over to meet him on her way to class. She realizes that he's reading an article about Lei Ruoxi and doesn't hide how much she adores the elder woman. While they are talking, she mentions something called the Great Snake of Changshan, which is quite popular. The Great Snake of Changshan is a clan that was formed by Lei, and they have a handful of powerful members. It's likely that the men in black suits that were guarding Lei earlier were also from that clan. Many of the students from the school are also aiming to join the clan as well as armed organizations. She asks him what his plans are, and initially, he wants to reply that there's nothing he would want to do. But then he thinks that utilizing that clan could be a fantastic approach for him to get closer to Lei. He comes to a decision and thanks Asahi for helping him decide out what he's going to do going forward. Then he walks away. Asahi has no idea what he's talking about, but she's happy to help anyhow. In Iwako's office, the principal is taking care of some business when his phone rings, causing him to jerk up in fright. He snatches it up, and it's Kyosuke on the other line. He wants a favor from Iwako, and it's tied to the next time that Lei contacts him. Meanwhile, in a secure research lab, men in lab coats move about the room while a student kneels on the ground, shackled and plainly in misery. The entrance to the lab opens up, and Lei Ruoxi walks in, mockingly asks the boy how he's feeling. The student begs her to demand them stop putting some bizarre medicine into him. If they continue to do so, then he will undoubtedly die. Lei Ruoxi kicks him to the ground and instructs him to stop complaining. After all, If the drug tests are successful, then he will end up growing much stronger as a result, and all he has to do is continuing being a little lab rat for them. She snaps her fingers, and two of the researchers rush up behind the student and inject him with another dose of the weird medicine. The student tries to beg and walk away, but as soon as the drug reaches his system, he starts to gurgle and scream, before gradually remaining silent. It looks like this time, the drug caused him to lose his language abilities. It appears like if the lab rat doesn't have at least some proficiency in magic, then the medicine won't work on them. They still need to acquire additional data, and for that, they will need to get more test volunteers. In order to do this, they can host a recruitment for the Great Snake of Changshan clan, but it's actually a technique for them to gather strong people to utilize as test subjects. She makes a call to Iwako in order to ask him if he remembers their talk about exam subjects before. Right now, she needs someone who is talented in magic, and she wants him to pick out certain pupils from the academy for her to utilize. Iwako instead gives her an idea to host a selection at the academy. That manner, they may directly find those who are skilled and bring them in without generating suspicion. Lei Ruoxi is delighted by the concept and starts organizing to hold the selection immediately. Meanwhile, Iwako closes the call and sighs. He has done what Kiyosuke requested him to do. So now the ball is in our MC's court. The next day, one of Lei Ruoxi's guards makes a statement to the students, alerting them that the Great Snake of Changshan would be holding a selection exam to locate new members. The students are eager to gain an opportunity to join a popular clan, but Kiyosuke simply smiles in satisfaction. It looks like a road to get closer to Lei has finally appeared for him. The pupils interested in joining the Great Snake of Changshan gather in the school's sports field to take the selection exam to join the clan. Lei Ruoxi's personal guard appears to offer a briefing on how the exam will go. As he's listing out the conditions for the competition, Kiyosuke thinks that he has to pass this selection exam so that he can join the Great Snake of Changshan and get near to Lei. His approach to this one had to be different from how he got to Iwako. Before, he attempted not to draw any attention to himself, but this time around, he has to catch the attention of Lei's right-hand man, Yang Xinyu, and also the attention of the other examiners. To do that, he decides to show off his power a little bit. After the opening introductions, Kiyosuke moves over to the seating area to wait for the true preliminaries to begin. Asahi comes over to see him when she sees him sleeping behind the stands. She admits that she too plans to take the exam, much to Kiyosuke's displeasure. He would rather not have her getting entangled in this whole mess. Asahi herself recognizes that she doesn't really fit with the other powerful students who are taking the exam, but she has her own reasons for wanting to participate despite that. She plans to do her best to make it through the exam, and she wishes Kiyosuke good luck as well. The tests begin, and it starts with a test to measure magical power. The guards present an orb, which will be used as a measuring device to visualize the magic power of anyone who touches it. The pupils are to go forwards one by one and pour their magical force into the sphere, and then they will be judged depending on what shows. The first batch of students aren't that impressive to the examiner handing the grades, and he gives most of them mediocre marks. Then it reaches Kiyosuke's turn, and he proudly steps up to the orb to take his test, showing his card to the examiner as he goes by. The man isn't too impressed at seeing a level 30 void user, and he already doesn't expect much from him. However, his expectations are blown out of the water as Kiyosuke unleashes a large amount of magical power, causing the orb to glow with a blinding brightness that practically blinds everyone in the area. They can barely believe how powerful he is only from the first test. As the light display goes down, Kiyosuke calmly walks away as the examiner gives him an S grade for the first test. The next is a magic skills test, which is a student's opportunity to exhibit what they can do with their attributes. Kiyosuke makes a lump of soil, which is a really basic spell that most people can execute, but then he follows it up by generating a ball of water, which is already stunning enough. But later, he finishes it up with a ball of fire, lightning, and air, and manages to flawlessly hold all of them together at once. Those are all the basic properties of magic being cast and sustained at the same time, and it's a feat that no one has ever seen before. That's the strength of the void attribute, which has been derided as impotent for much too long. Asahi runs up to congratulate him after his fantastic performance, but now it's her opportunity to prove her worth with her magic. She moves up to a group of dried and dead plants and throws light magic on them, quickly reviving them and filling them with vigor. The other students laugh at the fact that all she can do is resurrect dead plants, which is nothing extraordinary, but Kiyosuke recognizes the actual importance of her skill. She has light attribute magic, which is just as rare as his void attribute, which means she has the potential to become powerful like him. But it'll be tough for the examiners to judge her skills because it's so rare. He feels a bit horrible for her, but it's best for her to not get drawn into this mess with him unexpectedly, despite Kiyosuke's concerns. Yang Xinyu puts her name down as someone worth testing as a test subject. After all the examinations are done, the last stage is a one-on-one combat with the examiners. These examiners are members of the Great Snake of Changshan, so logically, the students have little chance of winning. But this argument isn't about whether the students can win or lose. They will all be graded based on how well they fight. Yang Xinyu is fully aware that there is no way a pupil could win against them in the first place. Kyosuke's turn comes up, and he's set to face one of the roughest-looking examiners in the tournament. He has already made quite a stir during the exam with all the showing off he did before, so the teacher is more than ready to square off against him and prove that his achievements in all the other tests don't signify anything when faced with real combat. Kyosuke modestly agrees and says that he is anxious to learn a lot from their struggle. The examiner is ready to complete this in one hit and crafts a massive attack using earth magic, blasting many rounds at Kyosuke. The pupil is immediately able to block it using wind magic, and he counters the attack fully, sending it all flying back at the examiner. He can't believe that a simple student could shatter his magic with one hit, but by the time he glances up, Kyosuke is gone. Then he returns behind the man with a sharp icicle produced from water magic, pressing on his throat. The winner is declared promptly, and Kyosuke comes out on top in the exam. Yang Xinyu can't believe that a student would be able to win against someone from his clan, and he starts to wonder precisely who Kyosuke is. Later that day, he calls Lei Ruoxi to clarify the details of the exam. She asks him if he found any fascinating test subjects, and he brings up a student in particular who is really interesting. He completed the exam with an extraordinarily excellent result, and it seems like he possesses the empty attribute. As soon as Lei Ruoxi hears that, she recognizes that the student is most likely the same individual that Iwaka was investigating into. Now that she has heard that, it appears like she has managed to get her hands on a really fascinating guinea pig.